check, check. We'll be online shortly, folks. Just waiting for my co-host. Check, check, check. Live from the Rob Christensen Radio Network Satellite Studio, it's Jim and Rob Overanalyze the Movies. Hello, everybody. Ahoy, all. It took a while, and even now the speakers are kind of driving me crazy. But we're finally online. So, thanks so much. I know it took forever, but we're finally online, and here we are to take a look. Jim and I are going to take a look to see if the John Hughes 1984 teen comedy classic 16 Candles holds up. And let's see, we do have a log line here. A girl's sweet 16th birthday becomes anything but special as she suffers from every embarrassment possible. And I couldn't have written that better myself, but it was JGP3553 at yahoo.com who wrote that for the IMDb page. And with that, I am going to jump to the synopsis, and then we'll get this show finally on the road. 16 Candles opens with an upper-middle-class family getting their day started. It's here we meet Samantha, played by Molly Ringwald, on her phone whining to her friend Randy, played by Liane Curtis, about her body, lack of a car, and lack of a boyfriend, specifically high school heartthrob Jake Ryan, and on her 16th birthday, no less. Samantha then faces the mirror and observes that while the calendar says she's 16, she still has the body of a 15-year-old and states her dramatic wish. 4 inches of bod, and a great birthday. Her family then proceeds to forget her birthday.
I can't believe this. They fucking forgot my birthday.
The film cuts to her high school, and we are treated to one of the best high school intro montages ever. There, Samantha continues to whine to Randy about her situation. Randy, while sympathizing with her, calls her on her shit. We finally meet this heartthrob, Jake, played by Michael Schoeffling, in class while he's straight up staring at Samantha while she is trying to surreptitiously creep on him. Then he steals the note she was trying to pass to Randy, because that's what heartthrobs do. Afterwards, Jake has a heart-to-heart with his buddy Rock, played by Tony Longo, about the state of his love life and his growing affections for Samantha. Why Samantha? Because he wants a more mature and loving relationship than the one he has with his current selfish girlfriend Caroline, and he keeps catching Samantha looking at him. Rock, obviously Jake's Randy, calls him on this shit. Meanwhile, Sam and Randy jealously creep on Jake's girlfriend and obvious supermodel, Caroline, played by Haviland Morris, while she's showering, 'cause that's what friends do. The film now cuts to the end of the school day and that most hated of high school conveyances, the school bus. Samantha and Randy are harassed by almost every boy on it while Randy tries to convince Samantha to ditch her drama and come to the school dance that night. It is only then that we are introduced to maybe the best character and biggest creep in the entire film, and that is saying something. The Geek, played by Anthony Michael Hall. He puts the other harassers to shame with his galactically creepy and gloriously incompetent attempt to ask her out to that dance. Samantha easily escapes the Geek, only to find her home infested with creepy grandparents, one of whom actually feels her up, and a breakfast at Tiffany's level stereotype of a Chinese exchange student with the preposterous name of Long Duck Dong. Interesting note, this character was played by Getty Watanabe, a Japanese-American actor whose mother was a Japanese-American internee during World War II. So there's that. The first act ends with Samantha choosing to jump out of the teen drama frying pan that is her home into the teen drama hellfire that is the high school dance. Asian stereotype in tow. Oh my goodness. I don't even know if anyone's hearing me. So Shashank, if you've stuck with us, yeah, chime in the chat just to say I actually saying something. And you know what? Maybe I'll just be producing tonight because I don't even know why I'd claim that. I obviously don't know what I'm doing. That said, you know what? Enough's enough. Let us bring my co-host, the man with the most, Mr. Jim Chiliboyko.
Wakanda forever. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, no, we got this. We got it. You got on. It's all good. Shashank's still with us. It said we had a number of people watching currently, so that's good. And yeah, so it's
yeah, we got a few.
We're rolling.
We are rolling.
And we get a lot of views after the live broadcast too, so that's you know.
Hey Jim, you're clipping a little. Can you turn your output volume down a touch?
Sure, yeah. How's that?
Yep. I don't hear any clips anymore. Oh, look at this. Oh, Richard's.
Uh-oh.
This deserves to stay up on the screen. Maybe just for the entire rest of the thing. Oh, well, Richard, Katie, we appreciate that you made it. That's just all kinds of awesome. Also want to say to another loyal viewer, Shashank in Chennai, India. Good to see you here. It might be a little late in the day for Jelly Duck, but if he makes it, that's awesome. And anyone who also stumbles into our stream. So anyway, we've got the synopsis out of the way. Yep. Jim, let's give me your first take, mate.
Yeah, so I mean, I know from what I can tell, this movie's really close to your heart. It was funny. I was watching this, and it took me a while to warm up to it. I was watching and sort of waiting for everything to happen. It's one of those movies that takes place in the space of, I guess, 48 hours or so. So that I always like those kinds of movies. Those are kind of neat. But there's a sort of a lot of build up to this dance, and then the wedding comes the day after. And I don't know, I was just feeling it was a little flat until about halfway through the movie. There's a couple really nice and me and my sort of breathable scenes. There's a nice scene with Sam and her father, and that's followed right behind a nice scene between Ted, that's Anthony Michael Hall, and Jake Ryan, the sort of the stud of the movie. And those are like back-to-back lengthy scenes, gives the actor something to do, gets, Anthony Michael Hall's character becomes a little more of a human in that scene. And from then on, I was sold. It took me a while to get there, but ultimately, I'll come to my conclusion early. I think it holds up. There's a couple of things there. I knew it. There was sort of a problem with the depiction of the Asian character. What I forgot was the reference to bohunks, which is obviously Eastern European, of which I'm
not just
a member.
A bohunk, but an oily bohunk.
Yeah, and that's I think the whole long duck dong thing, overshadows. I counted. And I probably missed a few. There is 8 gong sound effects. But
it went with the whole racist gag.
Yeah. Well, if you watched it too, and I not to defend that, but it sort of goes along with the a lot of the characters had a musical introduction, like they had a little musical. Anthony Michael Hall's Ted had Dragnet for some reason, and then halfway through the movie, it became like Sinatra, like sort of loungy tunes. Anyway, so I think what they were trying to establish was a musical signature for the character. Unfortunately, there's going to the well. Well, there's the racial thing, and then there's the going to the well too often. 8 times in one movie for one sort of sound gag is a bit much. But anyway, so there's that, and I'm sure we'll get into it. There's a number of consent issues, and they're sort of handled in a bit of a Weasley way.
Consent issues.
But Well, and they both can't remember because I guess they were both drunk. Let's everyone off the hook, right? And,
it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
Like we gotta. Yeah. This, I gotta jump in at that moment. Like, I still have a soft spot for this movie. I still think it is a great movie. Much like Stagecoach by Henry Ford from 1939 is a great movie. I really think they're actually doing some things here that are not just progressive from a film sense, but also from a storytelling sense. But to recommend this, I'd also say, okay, here's the warning label. Actually, it's more of a booklet. You should take a few minutes to peruse so you really understand what you're getting into here.
Give him the same treatment as Gone with the Wind. Exactly the same word for word.
Yeah, you could almost. Like, it's just a lot higher on the... And it's weird because it's such a conflict, Jim. Like, it is, like, some of the... Not just the text, but the subtext, the unintended subtext, is such a terrible message to teens. But I do think unintended that John Hughes doesn't have like that Harvey Weinstein-esque reputation, and he was one who went, I got to get out of here. I got all my Home Alone money I can jet. So, I think we have to be really. And it's even one of those things where it was almost like this just wasn't as bad as some of the other 80s teen comedies. Like, in a way, like the excuse you can make for it, if you feel like making an excuse for it on the sexism, consent, gender role stuff, is Well, it was no Revenge of the Nerds, which is not. That's a pretty low bar.
Yeah,
like Trump level low bar. Hey, I didn't grab you by the you know what.
That's one that I haven't seen probably since it was released or shortly thereafter on VCR or beta. So, I mean, the movie story-wise itself, I think it holds up. Except for the racism, the sexual issues, and the advocacy of drunk driving. But other than that, it's I don't think the mad people, if they watched it again, I don't think.
I suspect they were up in arms at the time.
I'm pretty sure everybody drives drunk in this movie. Like, it's implied that Anthony Michael Hall's character gets drunk later in the night. Mm-hmm. He's still pretty functional even until after the party. Yeah. It's and then Getty Watanabe and drives the car into the lake. Haha. So anyhow, but yeah, it genuinely, and the ending is earned. It's not too in your face. It's a great shot. It's that final shot. There's a couple of good shots in this movie. None more iconic than that final shot, I think. I quite enjoyed seeing this. But it surprised me that it took me a while to warm up to it. But sometimes older movies do that to me. I think I've cited George Bailey Christmas Time movie. Help me out here. Anyway, that Frank Capra one. It's a Beautiful Life. It's a Wonderful Life. Sorry. I'm conflating two movies. Anyway, It's a Wonderful Life also took me a while to warm up to, but anyhow. How about you?
I think it's on one level, Jim, I think it's even a better movie than I remembered it. Like, as far as a movie goes, as far as the craft, like, boy, he was really, John Hughes was just, his writing and his casting and everything. Yeah. Like, it was like he was almost just before the peak of his directing and writing and producing powers. So, and I kind of got a bit of a list, that, I'm sure we'll get into, but, first of all, just on an interesting storytelling note, I was like, because usually when you watch some of these films, there's like what you worry about is the heroine, the princess, especially if she's kind of set up as, kind of a princess character. Is she going to be a dish rag? Is she going to have no agency? Is she not going to drive the plot? And what's interesting here is, I would say, she doesn't really. She is, of the main actors, in some ways the least active. But you don't, like, it's only when you're kind of watching it and analyzing it that you go there and it's like, wow, she really does. Like, we see her, she kind of drives the first act. Mm-hmm. But then it's almost like the story and the drive of the story is handed over to the Farmer Ted character. Mm. And I do not see anyone ever, like, I can't imagine a better person, maybe, or maybe that's where you really saw the magic. I really did. I was like, well, this is why he gets an introducing title credit, because wow, like, you need a certain amount of charm to be able to pull off that character where at no time, even though everything he does is creepy, at no time am I going, ugh. It's only now, like, looking at it where you go, oh, you're like this close to being a date raper, young man. Everything you do is wrong, but it's delivered with such charm. And even the casting where it's like, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, you kind of hope she doesn't hit him because she's going to hurt him. Yeah. But even that's part of it. And so I think from a filmmaking perspective, it's great. And it was that whole second act, she's in it for maybe half of it. And it's like the story's handed over to Farmer Ted. And then, it kind of passes, like we get her back every now and then. So meanwhile, back at the house, with their dad. But otherwise, it's really Farmer Ted and then him helping out, being that matchmaker, that sort of connector between the two capital L love interests, like between him and Jake Ryan. And he kind of drives that second act, him and Jake Ryan. And then we get into the third act. He has his, they finish off the second act with him. He gets his little victory lap and a girl, apparently. Just here's your prize. Yeah. Which the other thing, though, and I wanted to ask you this, I was surprised. My memories and what I was worried about is he's a little icky with the panties and then the whole giving up the girl. But I'm like, oh God, these problems are all it starts in the first act with the creepy spying and the creepy kind of he even grabs her at a point. You just wouldn't have that in a movie now.
Yeah.
You know what? You would not have it. You couldn't, and rightly so. I'm like, oh my goodness, the whole first act it sets up the worst behavior, the worst gendered behavior. It's of course it ends with a celebratory possible date rape. And you're right. I even in that time, if they didn't give he blacked out too, and who knows what happened, and I'm like, I don't know when he got drunk because he was the responsible one. Yeah. So anyway, it kind of went on and on and on, but
no.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you buy any of that?
Well, in terms of it's a little bit of a. They always talk about weasel words and communication, and the conclusion of what was the character, Jake Ryan's girlfriend's name there? Caroline.
I'm gonna cut you off for a second.
Yeah, that's a great idea, actually.
Shashank, first day of college, buddy. You go, you run, you do what you need to do. Thanks so much for coming by. Our bad for being so late. Jim and I we're looking at the list of movies, so one of them's definitely going to hit the show, and we'll make sure when that happens. But thanks for coming by, Shashank, and
you can watch us later too.
Yes, yeah. Who knows how long we go? You might be coming back from college, going, oh, well. They're still rambling on.
16 hours later.
Yeah. Anyways, great to see you in there. I did put up a message. If anyone's hearing clipping in the audio, if you could let us know, because it could be something going on my end. So anyway, it could be just my lack of competence. So if you're hearing it, just a quick message in the chat would be great. All right, where the heck were we? All right, the many, many, many gender problems.
Issues.
Okay, issues, challenges.
Yeah, okay, so I was...
But back to the storytelling briefly, maybe on a more upbeat note. I do, yeah, it's great casting. She, back to, for a character who's basically, her whole thing is, I'm going to, talk about my teen angst. I'm going to pine over this boy. Every time I get even close, I'm going to pull back, and then I'm just going to wait, and everyone's going to apologize to me, and then the boy's going to finally find me as I do nothing to move that agenda forward. And because Molly Ringwald is so good, and because Hughes is so good, it's I'm buying it at the end. I'm at the end, you're satisfied with that answer, which is not, usually you want to see a character with more, but just driving the plot a bit more, not just her desire, but doing something. Now, mind you, part of it is she does go up and then turn away and go up and turn away. So it's not like she's not following through, but she's, I think of all the characters, the weakest one, the Schoeffling, I couldn't find, I didn't have time, to be perfectly honest, to find the proper pronunciation. I keep saying Schoeffling, but I suspect it's Schoeffling. You know, like, I mean, there's any other pronunciation is really just trying to get away from it starts with shoe.
Yeah.
You know, maybe a bit more.
Something German.
Yeah, he was maybe the weakest of what was a pretty strong cast.
Yeah.
John Cusack, like it was all these, even when they had like just a little slice. Mm-hmm. I've got more respect for Haviland Morris now. Like, I mean, when she was in it, she wasn't a total stereotype of the queen bee bitch. Mm-hmm.
There's a couple things with her storyline, I think, and then before
good to know, Shashank.
Before we went on to, just to see the leaderboard there, in communication, there's weasel words, right? Words that get you out of, or there's the passive voice. So there's various ways to sort of not assume any kind of blame. And in this case, the fact that they both end up, Anthony Michael Hall's Ted and Haviland's Caroline, and they end up together, and he asks her, did I enjoy it? Did you enjoy it? And that because they're both apparently drunk and neither of them can remember it, who was the instigator, it both lets them off the hook. It's sort of the romantic equivalent of having a person, the cough, sorry, not your cough, but the cough into the bloody cough into the handkerchief or whatever, is signifying that the person's going to die, and then killing that character. And the logic behind that is, well, they were going to die anyway. So it's sort of like the sexual equivalent of that is like, it was going to, that's not the perfect comparison, but it's sort of like that same thing. Yeah, it's letting the writer off the hook.
And it's a weasel trope.
And it's
almost like a Deus Ex Machina.
And the writer just goes, "Whew, dodged a bullet there." I can't be. They were both drunk. Nobody can blame me of being creepy. and also there's that John Hughes is I'm assuming that he's the Anthony Michael Hall in that situation, perhaps from his youth. I don't know. Just hold on. Just hear me out.
I've got a comment on that, but continue.
Just hear me out.
I did research,
and he ends up with the babe for a little bit, and it was okay with them, and they have sort of a sweet little. I can't envision them continuing this relationship, but they have some sort of thing going on anyway.
Yeah.
So that's wishful thinking.
Yeah. No, but here's the thing. I think. So here's actually, swear to God, like I did quite a deep dive. I even read just at least the abstract and about a page of this academic paper on class and postmodern feminism and John Hughes.
Okay.
And then I got fed up with multi-culti and some nonsense. But anyway, here's the facts about Mr. Hughes. He felt he was quite introverted and artistic and shy, and so he dove into books when he was in junior high and high school. Like, I mean, there was some moving around, and not like military moving around. I mean, moving around in the suburbs of, from Dearborn, Michigan to Chicago. So, like most geeky, nerdy introverts, he, at 20, marries his high school sweetheart, a cheerleader. Because that's what all geeky nerds do. Shy and introverted.
Yeah.
So, it's like, of course you did. So, there's a part of me, either A, he's Anthony Michael Hall, and he really is, or he's more the Schoeffling's character, which is probably the most, like, it's one of those, you're a male supermodel, like, you seem to be awfully quiet and, not your stand, so the part of me is, or is he that, and he sees himself as the geek, when it's like, you were handsome and as charming and charming and just add some smoothness. Although we are talking the late '60s and up to 1970, so who knows? Maybe he was as incompetently caddy, cad as in CADs, the incompetent cad, and the blonde cheerleader literally went, "This is what I want. I'm good with this. Let's go."
And did that marriage last? No. She married
at 1970.
Yeah,
married. Like she is now referred to. Her name's Nancy Ludwig. 2009. He and his wife were visiting kids in, I believe, New York City is where he just collapsed. With the wife he married in 1970.
Number 60 West 55th Street. I looked that part up. And here's something that's a little bit kind of touching. Somebody left at the spot where he had his heart attack, left 16 candles burning on the sidewalk there.
That is... well, and this is
bit of a tribute.
Why this movie is so good. Well, and even with all these problems, you've got an honest to God, first scene out of the gate. Bechdel test, check. In part, I almost want to, now mind you got all the rest of the gender stuff, but it's almost like I want to pull up that, well, actually, I think I could, but pull up that comic, kind of go to the character. It's like, yeah, but it's written in 1985 or, it's like kind of, but last year 16 Candles came out. First scene, she's talking to her girlfriend and not about a guy until the end, and more almost like as an offhand, the boyfriend. I would like a boyfriend, but that whole first scene is her and her buddy. They're obsessing about their body. They are talking about cars, but in a very real teen way.
Mm-hmm.
You have a woman-centered movie.
Mm-hmm.
She delivers her disgust, her joy, her everything. She delivers, and like you say, Jim, like you said earlier, about she is given time to deliver that. The camera is not in a big rush to go to the next joke. She's given time to be that kind of even the. There's a couple times where she's given her brother a dirty look, and you almost feel the force of the I'm gonna get you. There's a realness. Even I even buy the Jake Ryan's character again real. And there's been a lot of research. It isn't just the 80s. You see it. It may be culturally bound, but certainly in the Western world, it's typical that guys approach girls. Girls make the choice on whether or not to accept the approach. But so you see the reality. The guy doesn't want to go up and then look like an, which is why Farmer Ted's character provides such an important role to Jake Ryan's character, because he doesn't want to go up and look like a slime. Of course, a second later, he's saying, "So, take my current girlfriend. Don't worry, she'll never know the difference." It's like, here, I'm going to go get a new car. You can have mine.
Well, we can also talk about how he failed to react to the structural damage to his parents' house, but that's a whole other kettle of fish. In terms of the Bechdel test, I don't know what it is when it's the reverse, because you have two guys talking about the girl, right? When in the long scene between Ted and Jake, Anthony Michael Hall, and
where Anthony Michael Hall mixing up, he looks so good.
He's doing a martini, but with a rub, with a lemon, the zest. Then he put all of it in. But anyway, I'm not sure about that.
Still, it was brilliant. Just how smoothly he did it. He's
pretzel?
Not just king of the dipshits, king of the James Bond level, a James Bond level dipshit.
And there was something different about the performance. It's not just the precocious kid, and it's not the Michael J. Fox young Republican kind of thing. But there's actually, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but he sort of transcends all that, and it really is sort of a unique performance. side note, I started watching a British show. It's on Gem, CBC Gem, called Misfits. I don't know if you ever watched it, but it's sort of a vaguely superhero. Yeah. And it's I've quite enjoyed it. And there's a standout character, Nathan, played by and I looked this up, Robert Sheehan, I believe it, who may be in that Umbrella Academy. But anyway, same thing. He sort of stands out with that same kind of brio, for lack of a better term. There's something about the be able to cut through the any situation and just sort of it really a kind of a unique performance. I don't know another. There's a lot of precocious adult children kind of gags out there, but he really did something different with that, and I appreciated that when I was young too. This time watching it through, it sort of, the first half of the movie, I'm sort of not entirely sold until he stops being creepy and he just has that talk with Jake Ryan, and that sold me. I think they humanized him with that scene, and also, it just, the rest of the movie was great.
I think even the scene before with Molly Ringwald in the car in the shop in in shop class, I think even that has he still behaves badly. He's still creepy. He's still but he
rubs on her and
it's no, that was his breath mints. Breath freshness is important, but it's how he thinks it's that scene I could say was in a way a better scene in that he makes his move, but he's off the second he's he's getting no means no. He's like, well, I thought, okay.
She sort of
here's my signal. Okay. Yeah. He's picking up the play. He finally picks up the play, and they have a very sweet moment, which he then and even when he asks for the girl's panties, I mean, no one would ever, but somehow you're buying it because of the quality of the talent and the quality of the storytelling.
Yeah,
and it's more what he does with them after, which is actually the moment, and her learning about it is where she comes back into the movie at the end of the second act.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should tell you this, but
having said that, I don't think he pursues her after that. He's done. Right, with her.
He gets it, and he is totally on her side after that. He's like, okay, who do you like? He's my guy. He tells her, and no trying to manipulate that conversation. Yeah. No, it's this character, and again, he's a character as an arc.
Yeah. Oh, to the point. There was something at the end that happened there where they phoned him on the car phone and said, hey, what happened, the morning after? Yeah. He's like, I'm not going to. And that, I think, is that change of, he didn't want to brag to the guys what happened. I told you not to call me on this phone.
That, I was more to call me.
Points for the car phone, by the way.
Yeah. Well, even the phone, now the anachronisms that a Shawshank or Jelly Duck, or perhaps, not a Katie, but I love that, how they, and it gets, you see even more extremes in later John Hughes films, but, it's the father going, pay the bills and I don't get my own phone. Yeah. The girl gets her own phone. When this came out, we saw it. That was a thing. Yeah. I don't know. Did any of us growing up, Jim, have their own phone in their room? I don't think any of us did.
It was a big deal for me to have a TV in my room. I would watch my 3 channels and sometimes, CKND on my black and white TV late into the night.
KNRR sometimes the winds were right and you
old movies or I wonder what French movie is on this weekend.
CBC Radio Canada.
Yeah. But no phone for me. I think But that's the phone in the room, I guess, is this last generation cell phone.
Well, part of but I think that was also like a firmly established, like a class level, and probably not intentionally.
Yeah.
But at the same time, everything else, when I was going through the synopsis beats, and I was like, it's these affluent people. There's always a super rich person in a John Hughes movie. Well, I shouldn't say in this series. There was like kind of there's always the rich person in affluence. So you got these upper middle class homes, upper middle class people, but there's a rich person, like somebody who's like, well, who it's the kid who drives a Porsche.
Yeah.
And his dad rolls.
And the parents with the roll, the rolls you mentioned, which actually looked on close inspection pretty beat up. I don't know if you noticed the license plate, but it was NYSE, New York Stock Exchange. So anyway, but I did a little list of tech or tech and fashion. I just said buttons, bad sunglasses, windbreakers, Heather Thomas, Walkman, calculator watch, car phone. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, no. Well, those great, what's the word I'm looking for, Jim? Those just great set design, like real set design. That is what, and he looks like he was probably, like he wasn't an 8-year-old. That's a 10, 11-year-old boy who's, had that great moment. There's so many great little moments which again shows his, I think, kind of, for all the retrograde stuff, like looking back at it, 35 years later, it's the kid makes the crack about make for an interesting honeymoon because his older sister Ginny, played wonderfully by Blanche Baker, has a, is on her period, having her period. The 10, 11-year-old makes that crass crack. Dad goes, where are you picking that up from? And it's like, school. And they go, good, I'm getting my money's worth. Paul Dooley was great. Like, never,
Paul Dooley from Strange Brew, by the way, which we...
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So he's a twofer along with the helicopter guy from Road Warrior there. But no, Justin Henry, by the way, as Mike,
the kid,
the kid from Kramer versus Kramer, who was at the time one of the youngest Academy Award nominees.
Yeah, I think he's still the youngest nominee because Anna Paquin, she won, but I think she was even older because he would have been very much a small, like he was, how old was he?
Yeah. Well,
5, 6,
8.
7, 8.
It says 8.
Or 8 was the, well, and even that then goes to he was probably like literally 12 or 13 when this movie was made, and I think he was aged like that's, and maybe that's why we're buying it. He's a smart-ass 12-year-old, and when you think about it, in a house with 4 children, Molly Ringwald's character, the Samantha character, has the middle child syndrome because you got the cute little red-headed girl bringing up the rear, and he's the boy of it, so he's not going to have any problems differentiating himself. Yeah, he gets to be a spoiled smartass,
Yeah.
His mother, don't be a smartass. That's what I do.
There was also
my methods.
I suspect the youngest sister might have been Ringwald as well, because there's a credit for. I'm always wanting them to use the character names so I can get them down pat. But I think it was Beth Ringwald.
Unfortunately, I can't. Again, now this I'm putting all on. I'm putting this all on. What's its
Restream?
Putting it all on Restream. We do have a comment from Katie Fowler. She chimes in. Katie had a phone in her room.
Oh my gosh.
Katie, in many respects, grew up much like okay, this might be laying it on a little thick, but yeah, Katie grew up in an affluent suburb.
Also with red hair, perhaps?
Yes, that is correct. I'm going to brush my beard now.
Do you remember back in, just a quick aside, back in the 80s, right when Molly Ringwald was at the height of her powers, she came to Winnipeg to film something over the course of a week.
Wait, Katie did chime in and she says, with her own private line. She wants to make sure it just wasn't some crappy extension.
Party line, yeah.
Katie had her own line. Okay, anyway, yes, you're talking about, that was that wedding one where she gets pregnant
and she was here literally for a weekend, and the whole city was, and this is, pre-Twitter and everyone was like, where's she staying? I think she's at the Fort Garry, and they're going to be filming at this, and it was just to be here as a location shoot for some tiny, cute little church out in the country. I have a couple ideas of which one it was. I'm not sure if it was the one in Headingley or further south.
I want to say it was out by Headingley.
Oh, was it? Because there's a little black and white church there now that's quite just right on the Trans-Canada. But here's
the thing, though. I'm pretty confident. I'm on her thing now. I think she's actually been back since.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, doing. She was back for Siberia. I think she was in town for that.
Okay.
Briefly, but of course it's the arc of her acting life.
Yeah.
It's the arc of her career, right? I mean, I don't want to be. Yeah, and I don't. It is the arc of her career. Her peak was definitely, her time of being the lead.
Yeah.
Starring Molly Ringwald, was when she was younger. She's managed to have a pretty solid career since, and almost like a little later in life, maybe not a renaissance, but definitely she's getting a fair bit of work.
She's on Riverdale, which my kids sort of hate watch, and I think she's the mom of Archie. Don't quote me on that, but she definitely had a peak, and she had a peak when she was doing these teen dramas, and her audience were teens, which used to go crazy for this kind of thing, and she was sort of really at the top of. I mean, bam, 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 bam. Like every year, she was in one or two movies that had a lot of pull and did fairly well, her and John Hughes made a great team.
And I'm wondering if one of the reasons he stopped, although Uncle Buck has a bit of that flavor, I wonder if one of the reasons he stopped doing the teen coming of age, especially the woman-driven teen coming of age, after Some Kind of Wonderful and Pretty in Pink, was that he was they had a falling out then. My understanding is she didn't want to be in Some Kind of Wonderful.
Okay.
And so that was part of their falling out. And I wonder if he was no, I had my muse. That's it. And he made two killer teen-driven movies and two pretty solid ones. I was never as big a Pretty in Pink fan. Mm-hmm. I have a soft spot for Some Kind of Wonderful, but they're not Breakfast Club. They're not 16 Candles.
Yeah.
What did you think, Jim? I wanted this is one of the things that kind of, especially the house party, but did you? At any time when you're watching it, did you think, oh, this is his National Lampoon past coming out in the film? That's
a good point. I did check, just another quick aside is that at times, and especially in the first half of the movie, it felt like it was both trying to establish, it was almost like a kind of a almost like a high school world building exercise in a way. Because at the end they would show sort of arrays of people and you sort of knew all their stories. So that was kind of cool, including all 4 grandparents. Kudos to him for, I don't know how many movies do that. And like the full family, like a big family too. It wasn't one of these families that's a father and the mom's passed on or whatever.
Even
it's like a full family
nice
complement.
B plot with Ginny and the oily bohunk, the Riz chicks.
Yeah.
That, like, at no time did it feel like they're really putting something. It's like, oh, for crying out loud, or, oh, who are these people again? Like,
yeah.
Everything had a moment to breathe. But I also think going back to, because she wasn't, I got to admit, if I ever fell in love with a character, here's my fantasy about my career in writing feature films, Jim. But I could say, you can write a character that maybe doesn't have as much agency as others, but then you've got to have a full complement and you got to give them time. Again, back to that sort of like at the halfway mark, she's going home, going as Long Duck Dong and the Lumberjack drive off for more fun, and she's going, oh, wow, he's here one weekend and he's got a girlfriend. Great. But it's like the movie's handed off. Somebody else is going to take it for a while. Like it's not episodic. Everything still weaves together and sets up for the climax, but it is almost like here's the story. Take it from here. And I'll meet you in the third act and take the story back.
The other thing, too, that's interesting is that it's not, and I'll get back to the National Lampoon thing in a sec, but the high school dance isn't a natural place for this to necessarily go. It just happens to be another thing that's happening this weekend that's maybe sort of taking, and there's another point, too, this maybe sort of taking place of a party. Lots of people, music, celebration. The point earlier you said about her not having a lot of agency or making a lot of choices or waiting for things to come to her, that kind of is similar to a birthday, right? All you do is show up, and you have people bringing you gifts, and you have people showing up. You don't have to, who throws their own birthday? Well, when you're an adult, you sometimes do, but well, and
I do it in part because it's like, no, I want it done this properly.
But when you're a kid, you do all those. It comes to you, and so in this case, it sort of
especially that American idea of the Sweet 16.
Yes,
it has a cultural. There's a cultural thing going on there.
Just show up. We got you, honey. So in that case, it does follow the template of a party, right? Of a birthday weekend. Anyway, so
and even her, which could have been super passive aggressive and made her unlikable. She does. So it's not like she's not making any choices. I think it's all choices that she pulls back or whatever. But even the choice of not telling them, like, and her friend gives her crap about it. Why don't you just tell them?
Yeah.
And they have that, which again is unique in that, you have the sassy friend or the cheerleader friend, but here was both these love interests had friends who were willing to push back, but they shared with, every conversation, a real conversation. Mm-hmm. Even Farmer Ted, even Anthony Michael Hall could pull it into real, when required.
And the other thing, too, is just in terms of fleshing out things, is that the boy that Randy was dancing with, Jimmy, I think his character's name was, he was sort of, telling Ted to get out of here. Like, so he sort of had her back, too. And so it wasn't just, she wasn't just out there alone. She did have confidence, but she still, there was an issue of isolation for her, and
but not like a chosen isolation, let's say. She's like, I gotta go. She wanted to go cry.
Yeah.
Then she had to wipe her tears,
and then the girlfriend of Jake Ryan says, "Hey, how you
how's
doing?"
It going?
Like, nice little touch there. So
not a queen bee jerk. Like, she behaves badly. She is selfish. But when she's getting her hair cut by her friends and they're all kind of watching, and it was like kind of, wow, I'm feeling bad for you, Caroline. Like,
Yeah.
your friends are enjoying this too much, which I think is another moment to be, because she got her hair caught in the doorway because Jake shut the door on her because she's so loaded. But even that, I think, is almost like a little moment that Hughes, the story, gives her to kind of, because we're like, okay, she is a bit of a jerk. But then there's a bit of a pullback because I don't think he wanted us to hate her at the end.
Yeah.
You know, she was not the villain of the piece. She's got to be the reason that Jake's like, no, I want to date her. Again, who the only reason he likes her is because she keeps looking at him.
Yeah.
Not exactly a man with... I could see why he maybe want to break up with Caroline, but I mean, I'm questioning his reviewing. You know? But
there's just a couple before we go on. There's a couple neat little actorly touches.
I don't think we have to go. Continue. Yeah.
No. Just
I got lots more questions for you, Jim.
When Jake is in his room and he's trying to call Sam up and gets her grandparents instead, just before he makes the first call, he's got the picture of Caroline on his bed and he turns it down. You don't want to see this.
Yeah.
And it's not even all that lurid. All he's doing is going.
No.
I mean, it's a loyalty issue, but anyway. And then the other one that I liked was when Anthony in the car shop, when Anthony Michael Hall goes in to get into the disassembled car that Molly Ringwald's sitting in, and he can't figure out how to open the door. And he can't.
She reaches over
and unlocks it. Like those are a couple sweet little moments. There's tons of those little things throughout the movie.
Well, here's a question for you, Jim. I'm going to look up I didn't have time to get it up on the site, but I can play it from my computer. I'm going to look that up. But what I wanted to ask you while I'm digging that up so we can see this bit, which I just loved. Okay, there's the moment where they use the Peter Gunn theme. I believe it's when Farmer Ted is walking up to her.
The first time on the bus?
First time on the bus.
Okay.
I think it's there, but it could have been somewhere else. But when you listen to the soundtrack, sure, there's some very modern, upbeat pop songs. Or modern for the time. But I don't think as, say, edgy or as, let's say, more obvious or overt or as involved as it is in The Breakfast Club. But there was a lot of using music to not just establish character, but to music and sound effects to kind of put a button on a gag, to help land a gag or to be part of the gag. And sometimes not as obvious as... I was wondering, were you seeing that? Was it unique? Was it something new? Like, I kind of want to explore this, but what did you think of that use of the soundtrack, the horns and symphony stuff to kind of, like when she gets shocked by someone, you know, like, when her grandparents go, you should take Long Duck Dong. And then her, almost like a Hitchcock moves.
8 gongs for Long Duck Dong. The use of music and sound was interesting. I think there was a little bit too much reliance on constant music in that nice scene between the father, Paul Dooley, and Sam. When he comes to, late at night, he can't sleep. She's not sleeping either. And he wants to apologize for forgetting her birthday, or he says, "We forgot your birthday, but we still remembered." I'm sort of paraphrasing, but there's music throughout that whole scene, and there didn't need to be, and it's really syrupy music. There's a couple really good tunes. One's called "Happy Birthday" by Altered States, which I quite liked, and you can find some really dated Top of the Pops like clips of it online. There's a couple of real like bangers, as my kids say, but there's other times too, and it's such a weird soundtrack. Like it maybe it's a Chicago thing. It gets into bluesy stuff. So you've got this. On one hand, you've got a lot of these, and maybe if you broke it down with like a professional sort of musicologist, it would make more sense. But for the youths, you know, at their dances and stuff, there's a lot of that sort of kajagoogoo, that English influenced kind of pop. And then in the scenes between, there's a lot of like Chicago blues. And there's a couple scenes where there's songs that are real duds, and I think it's only to have it in there to have music there. So a lot of the choices I liked, and in fact, I'm going to go back and you know, Spandau Ballet. How can you argue with that? That still holds up. That still holds up, Spandau Ballet. But yeah, there's it's a little. Now, here's another thing, really quickly. I was looking at this, and you were asking about National Lampoon earlier, that he Class Reunion, I think it said that he worked on, or one of those movies.
Well, he was a writer.
Yeah.
Like he did one of their big annuals. Like he was part of that. He was part of that scene in that clique in the 70s. Yeah, he started writing jokes, and then he got on with them before he went to LA, and like before he picked up on one of their movies, and then LA and started writing other stuff, including Home Alone, like, which I suspect his spouse, because she donates a lot of money around Chicago, you know, his widow, and probably still kind of go, oh look, a Home Alone check.
Yeah, and obviously closely identifies with Chicago and that kind of thing. But so looking back at his filmography, this is the first one that he directed. And like with a lot of time first timers, whether it's a novel or whether it's a movie, it tends to be a little bit overstuffed. I'm not sort of coming down hard on this. There's a lot going on. There's a lot they're trying to accomplish. And he pulls a lot of it off. Sometimes I think it makes for a little bit of a bottleneck in the first half, but you know, there's the whole big
and all
family.
90 minutes.
Yeah,
it's a 94-minute film, start to finish, credits included.
Yeah. So you know, even with music, tends to be a little bit overstuffed. The story, there's probably maybe one or two too many characters. There's a lot going on, but I think that's just indicative of an enthusiastic first-time writer-director. You know, he's been given the keys to the Rolls Royce, and you know he's gonna, you know, first-time driver, right? So he's gonna run with it. But so yeah, long story short, I like the use of music. In terms of sound effects, I'd have to go back. The gong thing is the most. Oh, here's the one thing I wanted to point out. So there's references. There's a script reference to The Outer Limits. There's musical cues, The Twilight Zone, Peter Gunn,
that's sort of,
and Dragnet. So here's the Twilight Zone connection.
Oh,
is that one of the grandfathers was in a Twilight Zone?
Really?
Yeah, he was in. Probably the most relevant for this time. It's a Good Life. It's where the little crazy boy has control over the entire universe.
Yeah.
And so Frank, the sort of the younger seeming grandfather, he's actually in that Twilight Zone. And I have to go back to see, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, you got to add to your list. No, it's a great list, 300% bang on, but you got to add to it the Godfather theme when they're having dinner with the wrist checks at the club. And it's there, and it's like, but subtle enough. It's not super. It's not Ride of the Valkyries in Defy Bloods. Oh God. And that's what okay, so you saw that too. Like, and it isn't all perfect. We're
probably missing a few, I'm sure. But.
Yeah, but it's, I do. Like, it's such an important part of his filmmaking, especially in that era. Mm-hmm. And they're not, let's say, I'm going to say classically scored, and I don't mean classical music. I think more, the way Hollywood scores a movie, or the way And I'm wondering, and this is something I want to dive into deeper, and that's why there's a link. You're just going to have to type it in for those of you who are watching. And Jim, there's this channel on YouTube called Sideways. The guy is a musicologist and a musician. He's got, a fine arts degree in music. I think he took graduate studies. He dives in deep on this stuff, and I've been binge watching his stuff the last few days. Okay. And he dives deep into it. I'm actually going to try and get an interview with him for us. It is so good. This guy is worth. It's binge worthy. He produces his shows well. There's no screw ups like mine where it's an hour late, and even then. Part
of the journey.
You're part of the journey. Thank you, Jim. Listen, I've got, and this is another weird little moment, and then I want to ask you about it, but I'm going to put this up on the screen, and we'll take a moment. Let's pull our music down a bit, and I'll put this up, and I'll take Jim and I off, and we'll just watch it for a second.
I think it's time to blow this thing off and go to your house.
Yeah?
Tell Tracy and Robin and those guys to come to your parents' house, okay? I told them not to tell anybody. God, I love it when your parents are out of town. Fantasize that I'm your wife and we're like the richest, most popular adults in town. I owe all my great weekends to you. What's your problem?
What?
You've been acting weird all night. Are you screwing around?
Me? Are you crazy?
Okay. First brief pause because Mr. Jake Ryan is going to say something.
Okay.
Which I'm like, oh my God, that predates another pop culture thing. So just note that.
Sure.
But we want to watch it all the way to the end. Bear with me.
I don't know, Jake. I'm getting strange signals.
Well, they're not coming from me. Look, everything's fine. Don't have a cow.
Okay. Just remember one thing. I can name 20 guys who killed and love me.
Is that a threat?
It's a fact, Jake.
That may actually be the first time we ever heard "Don't Have a Cow."
Yeah,
like the Simpsons wasn't on the Tracy Ullman show till 1987, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Like I looked it up. It was after this was made.
Yeah.
And even earlier, there was a pop culture. I never knew where I got my use of aces. Oh, that's aces. Aces. It's part of my the Rob Christensen vernacular. Molly Ringwald, as she's walking away from her grandparents who've invaded her room, and they're like, "We're gonna have a nice long talk," and she's like, "Aces." I'm like, I think this is where I got it from. Like I was big on John Hughes at the time, and well, not John Hughes. I was just big on Molly Ringwald. I don't know. What do you like? Did you note it when it happened, Jim? Or
it's funny that you mentioned that because I had there was a reference to people being online, and it must have. It must have predated that. So there's the word online, we're online or we're not online. He's talking to John Cusack and
the two
Cliff and the other guy. Anyway, so the other guy, who by the way is a Canadian actor, evidently, who's only in 3 movies. But and then there's one of the people says to another, take off, like take off a. They didn't say a, but they said take off. So there's a couple of those things, but that's a good point. And I
now the takeoff could have been picked up because
down
the Bob and Doug thing predates this movie. You know. So, but I did. I was like, don't have a cow. Oh my God. But the other reason I picked this moment was, and here's another question for you, Jim. It's going to sound ridiculous, but I've got somewhere to. I'm going to go somewhere with this.
Sure.
You're forced to pick. You're forced to pick between Caroline and Samantha for your girlfriend, because we live in a fantasy world where you would even be given a choice. But you're forced to pick. You got to pick one of them. Who are you going to pick?
Well, I find aspiration a turn off, so probably Samantha, but anyways.
Well, I think like we're typically, like she is the nice girl. And although I like the way the Caroline character was written.
Yeah.
So
me as a 16-year-old, by the way, I should point out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No. Yeah. Me, 16. I was 17 when this thing came out. I probably saw it. I'm not sure I saw it in the theaters. I probably saw it on video a year later, rented at Addie's or something. But, well, actually, I'm going to ask, and this is a non-gender specific question, actually. Katie, whoever's watching, chime in the chat, tell us, and then we'll come back to this. But tell us who you're forced. Who would you pick? Who do you think's girlfriend material? Who do you think you got to make a call? And maybe it isn't for you; it's for your best friend or whatever. However you get to the choice, you got to make a choice. So I want to see that in the chat. Then once we got a couple of comments on that, we'll come back to it. What about in the Farmer Ted, like in that car, the car scene? Because it's I kind of look at it, and this is
in
almost
the car
like
shop or in the Rolls Royce?
In the car shop.
Okay.
The car shop. Whose point of view is that scene from? Like, who do you, or like, I mean, is it still firmly in her hands?
Well, in a way, it's him trying to unravel, the mystery that is her. It's just sort of Ted trying to figure out Sam a little bit. And it's clear that he doesn't know, like he knows how to make a drink and he knows a little bit about, various other things. Has never driven, apparently. And is,
but he seemed to do okay. He didn't
okay.
have a license and he didn't know how to drive stick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But he also said first-time driver, I think, when he was sort of complaining with
when he's just trying to
met his match or something, but which is kind of funny.
He's trying to kind of get out of it, kind of
like
not.
It's like the Chinese curse, may you get what you wish for. Yeah. I guess it's from, like, we know a little bit about Sam. He doesn't. He's trying to find out a little bit more, sort of what makes her tick and stuff. Well, he's trying to get in her pants, but that's all part, of, like, he's trying to appeal to her from a different,
he becomes
different place.
Trying to. Okay, you know what? Thanks. Because I was trying to figure this out. I was trying to figure out this handoff thing, but you're right. It's still from Samantha's point of view. She's still driving the bus there. What it is, though, is it's also kind of like a couple of scenes later, but I would even argue the one we just watched, where it's an opportunity for him to have a bit of an arc, him to change a little, him to become more sympathetic. Mm-hmm. So when things happen later, we're not going, well, what the hell? Like he does have to. It's an opportunity for him to be more sympathetic and more caring to the person we really care about. Like, we want to care more about him, but we also want to see Samantha not be like she's just it's been a shitty day.
Yeah.
Like by the end of that scene, it's like she's got a bit of hope. He has helped her out. She leaves that car, pantyless, but because apparently that's a thing.
Oh, John Hughes.
Well, at the same time, it's comparing it like we're watching this in 2020 without comparing it to other 80s movies. And I think if we were watching any of those Revenge of the Nerds movies, like, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, even, damn, I forgot, Weird Science, another John Hughes
Yeah.
classic. Oh my God, like he had this fat period of about like 3-4 years right in the middle of that decade.
Bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, but you know what? There's
Planes,
like
trains, and automobiles, and
other other movies where it's like, what the hell? That's effed up. Like
yeah.
you know, this is just at another level. It is, well, let's not call it progressive, but nowhere near like as awful. Well, no, actually, progressive compared to the other nonsense. Progressive compared to Animal House, which, you know, was all really just a guy fest, and the women are treated terribly.
Well, and
You know, like,
and I was thinking about this too, watching it. The things.
This is not to make excuses for the offensive behavior.
Sort of the funniest parts of this movie, and keeping in mind that it's a comedy.
We got one. Somebody's chimed in.
Yeah.
Katie's chimed in. Oh, and I could even show it on the screen. Katie figures it's Sam.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got to vote for Sam. We'll see if a couple others chime in first. Okay, continue, Jim. I rudely interrupted.
Oh, no. It's
as is my want.
Yeah. No. Lots going on. But sort of along with you know, back in the day, for a woman to, even Saturday Night Live, you know, you had Gilda Radner, you had Lorraine Newman, who's great on Twitter, by the way. You had a lot of women who were, Jane Curtin, maybe not given in a lot to do. It was sort of a boys' club back then, and they still managed to shine through it with their talent and perseverance and that sort of thing. So, you know, all along, there's that whole "can women be funny" kind of thing. So, you know, to me, the funniest parts of the movie,
which blows my goddamn mind.
Well,
that is, and I really have suspected the assholes that do kind of go, women aren't funny, or like just develop, like, you're just trolling now. Like, but that was even a question then. Like,
yeah.
Well, because Carol Burnett and Lucille Ball were just so goddamn boring and uninteresting. It's like,
well, exactly.
Their success for decades was a fluke of decades.
They did Mae West.
Like,
they did Mae West recently on American Experience, which is a good show on PBS. And that's, I mean, she was a little catchphrasy, you know, but still, you know, she obviously had you know, some jam going on there. But so can women be funny? So not only does John Hughes gives the lead to you know, this sort of guy in his 30s gives the lead to a woman, right? So there's the point where there's other guys talking about this woman, you know, that sort of reverse Bechdel almost kind of thing. And so
without her being some sort of force of nature.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't understand why all these boys like, it's like
the mysterious
she's
babe,
a real girl.
Right? Yeah. But to me, the funniest parts of the movie is, you know, obviously the Anthony Michael Hall character. And my other two big laughs were when the grandfather was calling in to the police because Long Duck Dong was missing. And they said, "What is he wearing?" And he goes, he's got a red Argyle sweater, tan pants, and red shoes. And then he pauses for a second.
Please note, red. There's
there you
some
go.
tan there.
And he pauses for a second. He goes, "No, he's not retarded." I'm quoting so I get to use it.
That's a great moment.
And the phone acting by this the older actor, by the way, is great. Like
who's been around, like he's not all these people, like he got great talent.
Exactly
for this film, and no one phones it in.
Yeah, no. So that the other thing, and the third funniest thing Anthony Michael Hall and something that's kind of
John Kapelos, like a go-to bit part guy for
Canadian.
Like, exactly. What is it? London, Ontario, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
But I think the most understated, sort of most overlooked thing, and or maybe not. I don't know. When Ginny, the sister who's getting married, takes takes too many muscle relaxants, and she's all gooned up for her own wedding. And the veil is getting in front of her face, and she's trying to spit out the veil, and she's sort of getting handsy with all the
Blanche.
Like
Blanche Makers.
She did a fantastic job, and that still stands out as she's not given tons of real estate, and she just does a great job.
Yeah, no. And yeah, a great.
So a woman is allowed to be funny. Basically, that's it. He's giving screen time to the lead, and also other like not just the guys get a chance to be funny in this, right?
Yeah.
Even the grandmothers get a chance to sort of shine a little bit. There's that cigarette ash when they're making breakfast, and that's a very
briefly
kudos to
going
him.
back to that. Even Caroline Haviland, she was hilarious in the car.
Yeah.
Like physically hilarious.
Yeah.
Just like really kind of committed, stuffing the bill into his mouth. Oh, what is this? Now we're both on the bill. Like it delivered, like in a car, being physical, like doing all that stuff is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And she delivers like in her one moment to, okay, I can be funny, and delivers. Like, I mean, yeah. And that again, it's a testament to the set and the storyteller, but also these actors that they're willing to commit, and that Hughes, and from what I read about his whole directing style, he really was like when I say an actor's director, not like just kissing their ass. Like he really apparently he was never hid behind a video village. He wasn't looking at the camera. He wasn't a technical guy. He sat in front of the camera and was totally focused on his performers. His notes were not like he was a great and perhaps not even a natural. He'd been around enough sets to kind of go, that works, that doesn't. When I'm going to do it, I'll do this. But and that's why you get this. And we got another vote. Richard would pick Sam, but 60-year-old Richard might have picked Caroline.
Yeah.
Okay, Hughes is forced to make Caroline a bit mean to humanize Jake. You're absolutely right, Richard. He does. Like, Jake needs a reason to leave Caroline, to even look. And again, though, but not a caricature. She's still nice. Like, she was still nice to Sam when she's crying. She didn't pick up the play, but she also usually in even later, like even movies, some of the nonsense that comes on Netflix now aimed at teens, it'd be something she would have been shamed for by a caricature of a mean girl. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's, again, all these characters had a nice balance. I think everyone's chimed in that's going to chime in on this subject. I am going with Caroline, and not just
to even it out.
53-year-old Caroline, but 16-year-old, or no, 17 at the time. Richard says she is pretty soft as a mean girl.
Yeah.
And I think that was on purpose. Like, even the moment that they have together, it's like, well, mind you, they're both Haviland Morris and Schoeffling, whatever. This fine actor. When they have that moment at the end, they were both 24. They might have even been 25. I didn't go into birth dates and production dates, but they were at least 24, maybe 25. They were adults. So at the end, when they're having their breakup conversation, or maybe they're breaking up or whatever, it's super adult.
Yeah.
But even then, they have a moment where she gets to go, hey, I'm cool, I'm covered. It's like, of course, she has her real love, Farmer Ted, in the car.
And
But-
Getty Watanabe was pushing 30. I'm pretty sure he's 28.
He's 29.
Or,
29,
so
yeah.
getting up there.
But he's still a young actor for a guy in Hollywood. Like he's got a whole career ahead of him.
Oh yes, yeah.
Haviland, if she didn't pick up steam, and she didn't, it's one of the reasons why she still acts a bit, but also peddles real estate in New York City. But where was I going with this? Oh, this is why Caroline, I'm going to make an argument now, is the choice. First of all, she had a killer line. Everyone got a good line. None of the, like, she really is. She's just, it's not a threat. It's a fact. You're like, kind of, yes, that is a fact. There are 20 guys. Maybe, and this might be overstuffing as you discussed, but it could have even been somebody dancing by going, oh yeah, man, 20. You know, maybe a little too much. But the one thing is, like, all these, except for Farmer Ted, which is why he might actually be better for her, Schoeffling, like, or Jake Ryan and Samantha Baker, neither are willing to say what they feel. Mm-hmm. They dance around it. They kind of going, whereas, yeah, that woman has no problem. And she's also the best read of everyone. She's like, okay, what's up? Are you screwing around? He's, no. Great guilt face, by the by. Yeah. But she is, yeah, definitely the most confident one. Definitely one is more than willing. There is a woman who will not, there will be no 10 or 20-year marriage. And then she's, I just not feeling like I'm growing in this. And, you know, kind of, because she hasn't, you know, she's got to go into therapy to tell, you know, to figure out how to tell people how she feels. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, the guy, another one who's not good at that, also needs to go into therapy, kind of going, I thought everything was fine. Why didn't you say something? Oh, like you said anything, you know? Yeah, that would not be with Carolyn Mulford.
Mulford, yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good one.
So there you go. There's my pitch for why Carolyn is actually the better girlfriend material. She even owns her crap at the end. Yeah, I was kind of a shit about your house. Whereas Buddy only gets sorry to got you involved. Sorry I got you date raped, perhaps. Like, she has the most venal sin. Like, I mean, yeah, she's selfish. Yeah, her friends are jerks, but they're his friends too. Like, sorry, can you?
I was going to say, if a write-in vote was allowed, I'd probably end up, you know, truthfully, 16-year-old me, I'd probably go for Sam's friend Randy is kind of more my speed. She's got that sort of stalker Channing from Grease kind of, you know, dark hair, you know, kind of sassy chick.
Yeah, no, I was purposely bracketing the conversation.
I understand. Yeah.
And you know what? It's more. I just really wanted it as an excuse to talk about how Caroline should get even more props than she does, and for being the most underwritten character. Maybe that's a little harsh, but she doesn't have a lot to work with. But what she does shows us says, oh, if they had another 10 minutes, I bet you we'd see more of her, and it'd be great. You know?
I sort of wonder if there is. It almost feels,
but
like
I don't think they needed another 10 minutes.
No, I sort of think there's some left on the floor, but in the editing suite. But I'm one of those guys that whenever I watch the cut scenes from the old, remember, DVDs, if you would watch the deleted scenes, I'm like, what's wrong with all of those? You know, like my vote would be to include everything, but I also like the long Lord of the Rings version. So that's just me.
Here's Jim. I've got here I should be pointing this way. Oh, never mind. Anyway, there's a comment that's not coming up in our awesome chat bot thing in Restream, so I can't put it up. But it's a Katie Fowler going back to Ginny Blanche Baker. Katie Fowler comments, funny how dramatic it was that Ginny had her period on her wedding day. 1 in 4 chance of having her period on her wedding day, you know? And that's a good point, Katie. Like, they play it for gags, like the woman, and almost like, you know, like that Ginny character is presented as an adult, maybe a bit vain but a grown up, and obviously marrying this guy not because she's in trouble or anything. Like it's hey, it shows everyone who the John Kapelos character, the bohunk.
Well, yeah,
but it's they're playing that for a gag because she took too many muscle relaxants, which was all brilliantly done and well done. It was funny, but yeah, Katie's right. It's like, is the woman new to this period thing?
Exactly. So, the other
that's
sort of
great point, Katie.
The odd note about that scene too is that in this movie that talks about all kinds of, bodily functions and underwear and this, and you have people trying to smell each other. Like she leaves the bus seat and he tries to smell her scent, In this movie, somebody says the word period, you can hear it in the church and everybody goes, oh, woo! Like, almost it was like the Hays Code or something they violated from the 30s or something to that effect. But
that's interesting, though, because there's that two levels. Like at the beginning, the kid makes a gag, says how I learned it at school. The dad, a well-written dad character, goes, good, I'm getting my money worth. It's like, he is learning, and I do want him to know this without making a big deal about it. But you're right. Like how did she describe it to the organist? The monthly bill. Her monthly bill came early. I think it was monthly bill.
Zelda,
so it's like kind of weird sort of contrast,
Zelda Rubinstein post Poltergeist. She's the medium in Poltergeist there. Yeah.
And did she recently die?
I think so. Like within the last 10 years or so. But she was. I think anyway.
But it is a good. I never even thought of that. But you're absolutely right, Katie. Yeah, it's a 1 in 4 chance. Won't be the first time.
The other thing I wanted to mention
would it be such a big deal? Well, except that I really, the way I read the scene where we learn she's having her period, I really initially, even the second time around, I'm reading it as the characters kind of girl stuff. So man, shoe, and it's like, oh no, it isn't, but it still kind of is. It's still, and heck, that's still a gag being used when it's like, I know what a period is,
Yeah, what would change would be the people's reaction to it. Back then it's like,
no, but I think
you can't say the word pregnant on. You can't show a television, or you can't show a toilet. Sorry, on the screen. You can't. Couples have to have twin beds. Yeah,
until Blazing Saddles.
Yeah.
Well, no, I still think it's used as a very lazy gag.
Yeah.
And almost always to the clued out father, to the clued out teacher, that kind of thing where, I'm a gruff guy. So,
I just wanted to bring up a quick thing about the oily bohunk Riz checks, rice, where I was watching it with subtitles and it literally said rice, RICE-CHEX, I think. When they were mispronouncing it. But
I got a good one for you. But anyway, continue. Yeah.
Being a fairly oily bohunk myself, and so bohunk, I gather, is Eastern European. I think Rizchek sounds Polish to me.
I was thinking, it'd be a
Polish Czech.
It'd be almost like a Polak joke.
Yeah.
Because it's Chicago. It's set in Chicago,
but I've also seen Ukrainians described as bohunks.
Yeah.
But. And there's a really kind of
it's usually that kind of racism, that bigoted joke. And usually there's a bit of you're practically the same. Anyway, sorry.
With her own grandparents, all 4 of them, there was obviously some sort of, like, one was smoking, and so there's sort of different kinds of trashiness, there. The one woman with, the hands-on grandmother was trying to make breakfast for everyone, and the other was, I'll open the donuts, and she had the ash coming off
with
her
long ash,
and then the other one had a spatula. all those people, they're obviously long-term performers. A couple of them, I think the woman with the spatula, the grandmother, was in vaudeville. So that like there's actual sort of, she's got her marks from that. But I was going to say is that with the Rizcheks, the depiction of them, especially in the church, the husband side of the aisle, they're all, it was almost like a depiction of an older, insensitive depiction of like Roma people. Like they all had mismatching suits and
bad
their hair,
hats,
and haircuts,
hats,
and facial hair, and
hillbillies.
East
European hillbillies.
Yeah. And so they're very, and sort of, along with Long Duck Dong, which doesn't sound Chinese, always sounded Vietnamese to me, but anyway.
Well, I think that's part of the offensiveness of the caricature.
Yeah.
Here's a poor Japanese guy,
playing a
Chinese guy with because that was totally National Lampoon bullshit.
But for the Rizchek side of the aisle, and they all were very vaguely sort of olive-skinned, and their complexions were a little bit darker. And I thought that was really kind of bad visual codifying on John Hughes' part. But they didn't really milk it too much. But it wasn't my. I kind of saw that part, and I kind of went, ugh. And that's I think Long Duck Dong sort of overshadows so many of the. The racial issues of that is that you sort of forget about the Rizcheks, and they're not, and they're in the mafia. So they're like in the Polish mafia. I don't know. They're sort of.
Well, it's because there's an Italian kind of vibe there as well.
Yeah.
Or an Italian stereotype vibe. Again, the Godfather soundtrack, like literally the Godfather theme.
Yeah.
It's like, geez, what does
does
Marlon Brando come by and say, "Kiss my ring and try some bread"?
My mom had the soundtrack, the original soundtrack of The Godfather, on rotation in our house back when I was a kid, and it scared the hell out of me to the point where I came out. The story goes, came out of my room terrified and asked her. It's a very minor key. Funeral dirgy kind of thing, and I just said, "Mom, I don't want to hear that anymore. I'm scared." In my onesie or whatever, or I don't know, but
but I get it.
Just
like you said, minor key dirge.
Ooh.
Where was I? Oh, okay. How did we get onto that?
We got to re-rail. Talking about
National
the bow hunk.
Lampoon, right? The bow hunk, the greasy bow, the oily bow hunk. Oh, Getty Watanabe.
Mm-hmm.
I am doing I'm doing research, and a YouTube video popped up on where are they now?
Oh,
and I'm like, sure, what the hell? Click, and. This is it's one of those, you have several different grades of YouTube bullshit, right? There are these, and some are good, some are bad, but they're answers and to your questions.com. And so some are just mills where they're just pushing this junk out. He is actually referred to in a voiceover, and it's someone reading it. Like, it doesn't have that kind of automated tone that you see some of them have. It's somebody actually reading it, referring to him as Jed Wannabe.
Really, eh?
And this is generated in the last few years.
Yikes.
Yikes. Like, it's just so offensive. But I also read another thing where he's been... there's a lot of Asian American writing and even creative work on Long Duck Dong, the Donger, and how, especially people growing up in the 80s, it was, you're allowed one stereotype that everyone else was going to use for the one or two Asians in the school. Mm-hmm. And up to that point, it was... Bruce Lee and Kung Fu, and it was it was still terrible, but people were like, well, at least he could fight. And until this movie came out, and then all of a sudden, for years, you were a kid you were the Donger. You were
Yeah.
donger. It was his awful hey, sexy lady. Like, it was all those catchphrases.
Yeah.
But apparently, again, and that part of the reason I looked up his age, and part of it was also like, even now, it's hard for Asian and Black characters to, Arab character or Arab not characters, actors, anyone not white, to get a role that isn't, oh, you're going to be Arab terrorist number 32. You're going to be, in the hood, urban gang member. You're going to be this. And so this is the early 80s when he's cast. He wants to act. You want to make a living. You're going to do some of this shit. And even now, how could you take that role? It's like, because he, and I think it's worth noting, we're all subject to capital. We're all serving capital. There's a million things that just, people are trying to survive. There's a very few people who make all the choices. And then the rest of us, that line can't be too close. You don't want to draw that line so close that you're not eating. But he even now, at the same time, he has this, maybe not love-hate. It didn't really wreck him. It was still work. It's still funny. He was like, I guess when he was younger, it's like, fuck, I'm making people laugh, and that's good and fun. So he does have some affection for this role. Well, at the same time, some people are like, how could you do that? And it's like, and all I could think is, wow, there's somebody at least 20 years younger than him saying that. Because a little older, you kind of go, oh, life's a lot harder, and we all compromise.
Well, and that's the thing, is that actors don't often get they don't pick what's going to be
80s.
popular, right? You choose your roles, but I always sort of...
And even then, how much choice did he have? 22 auditions, you got a call back.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it always angers me that David Duchovny was whiny about X-Files being shot in Vancouver. He's a 2-hour flight away from his home in LA or whatever, but he just like,
in the
I want
same
to choose
time
my
zone.
own success in the same time zone. It's not, you're not in Lower Slobovia. You're literally a 2-hour.
You're not in Winnipeg where you got to transfer.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's just, you don't get to choose your success. I mean, ideally, if you're George Takei, you get to be the cool crew member of the Star Trek Enterprise. If you're somebody else, I saw a really good, we all read things that we sort of remember, and I can't remember if it was the guy who played Epstein on Welcome Back, Kotter, but there was a piece that I think it was around his death, because he died pretty young, but about Epstein being the tough Jew, and sort of, for a lot of people, he wasn't that neurotic Jerry Lewis, Arnold Horshack-y kind of Jewish person, but he was a tough Jewish kid, and for a lot of people that was like, oh, what's this new hybrid, and it was kind of admittedly in a pretty schlocky show, but he actually, anytime you get that kind of success, you represent, don't you? So you don't always get to choose how you're successful as an actor.
And especially like David Duchovny being white, leading man, good looking. That guy has so many. Once he's made it a bit, he's got a million choices. Yeah. Getty Watanabe, once you're on the fringe, you are forever running the risk of just disappearing. Yeah. And so, I have a ton of sympathy for Getty Watanabe, and even more so, you raise a good point. There's, successful white actor who can just, I got to do features now,
Yeah, exactly.
And meanwhile, there's everyone else on the fringe, especially the others, where they're like, they've got to be nice. Mm-hmm. What's that? Arab terrorist number 22. Check cleared. I'm there,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sign me up.
What about, I asked about that. Like, what was your memory of this film? Like, did you like it? Did you not? I mean, I identify with John Hughes, 80s John Hughes films, like you identify with SCTV.
Yeah.
I enjoyed SCTV. I was a big fan, but I think I understand your love in the way that I was nervous about watching this.
Yeah.
You know,
No, it's understandable. For me, it all goes back
like
to
what
the
was your memory of it?
Anthony Michael Hall, pretty much.
Really?
I find he's like, in terms of now when I rewatched it, today, I was really taken aback.
Him and Molly Ringwald were boyfriend girlfriend for a while. Around
really?
For
Wow.
a couple of years, like real boyfriend girlfriend. Like,
man, she's got
some studio Andy Rooney.
No.
That poor woman. Anyway, but sorry, continue.
She's definitely got and it's maybe one of those subtle things that you tend to forget over time. She's got great screen presence. Like, they chose perfectly.
Hi.
She and even just in a lot of the other actors in the movie, they have to, throw off a line, do this, do that. The camera's sort of, especially at the start, is constantly on her, and there's not really a single off note. Like, she's fully in there. She has great presence. You can't take your eyes off her. She's great. In terms of memory, Anthony Michael Hall is a little bit. He's almost like, not that this movie has villains, but for me, and how much I hate, like, the overbearing villain, like the villain that takes over the whole movie.
Yeah,
he's almost like that. Like, he almost takes, his energy is so big, and so when you look back, it's just sort of like the first thing that I used to think of. In terms of screen presence, it's funny because John Cusack's in here, and knowing now that he'd be a movie star for the next, 40 years or 35 years, you can sort of tell, to the point where when Anthony Michael Hall tries to sort of bully him a bit, I wasn't entirely buying that, but he has screen presence too, obviously.
Yeah. And when they got to the party and he took the thing off, I'm like, like, right when they get to the party, and he makes them take off the other kid still has the headgear BS on, but he has it off. His collar's popped on that jacket, and he's playing a geek. And I'm like, oh, buddy, you're going to be fine at that party. There's the movie star that he does become. It's like, oh, just. Yeah, as long as you ditch the other two geeks. Yeah,
and I think John and
mind you, then they put him back into geek uniform, and I was buying it.
I think John and Joan are both in My Bodyguard as well. So another sort of Chicago shot movie. But so my overall, my sort of primary memory is of Anthony Michael Hall.
Acting family.
Yes, yeah. But it's of him, because he's given such a big chunk of the movie's energy, right?
And
it comes
he's
from
so
him.
big, he's so big.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying. Like, I didn't even notice it the first time around, but in the second time, like this, decades later, I'm watching it and. You're like, that's why I was like, oh my God, the first act in this movie's like ruined because he's such a creep. While at the same time, still being quite charming in that geek way, that king of the dipshits way. Yeah. But I could see how you'd think that. I didn't, in part because, it going back to screen presence and where my head was at, Molly Ringwald, and Haviland Morris to a degree, because she was so properly placed as this, and of course now I understand why. I look back, it's like, well, you are looking at a 24-year-old woman. My 17-year-old celebrity crush is, it's, well, yes, she is a woman, so there's that weird conflict. But yeah, I would say Molly Ringwald, in part just the way they all kind of bind together at that time. Anthony Michael Hall. And Anthony Michael Hall wasn't, I couldn't see myself as him. This is one of those movies where I didn't feel like I was any of the characters. I mean, you know, yeah, he was way too, well, falsely confident.
Yeah.
You know? like a Trump who learns, you
yes.
know?
Yeah.
Hey, there's Trump without an abusive sociopathic father.
I'd probably be amongst the crew of wallflowers there that they sort of did that long pan.
But exactly.
Yeah,
we didn't have enough time with any of them to kind of pick our particular wallflower. I was totally that kid in a high school dance.
Yeah.
I would not have had the guts to approach a Molly Ringwald. Never mind the Caroline Mulford.
Quick aside, there's what they show it twice, and I never noticed this before. There's two parents that are throwing a child back into the dance.
He keeps going, I want to hang out with you guys.
He's got a green windbreaker, and green pants, and they show
weird looking kid.
When Molly comes in the first, I think he's in the washroom when Anthony Michael Hall shows his trophy. But when she's coming in, they show him they show the parents pushing the kid in, and then again later they've got their own ISO shot where it shows them, now you get back in there, and
it's a walk and talk. There's walking, and then all of a sudden you have this moment, and then there's more. Well, maybe not a walk and talk, but a tracking. It was a tracking shot.
That's possibly some sort of Rogue One prequel or something. You could probably somebody's probably written some fan fiction on it. I don't know.
I don't know what happens to where does Caroline go? When did she? Where does Caroline Mulford go? Did she become governor of the state?
So here's a question for you. So the Darlene Love song is, I think, Today I Met the Boy I'm Gonna Marry.
Yeah.
Do Jake and Sam stay together forever? Do they get married? 5 years down the road.
That is a great question. I am going to double down on what I said before. They do not. And I don't even think that was his intent.
No.
I don't think we're even supposed to think that they're forever. I think she does get the birthday she wanted a day later. She got a nice boy. She gets a cake. All that stuff you're talking about. And it's interesting. God damn, this it just gets better in my head every moment we talk about it. But let me find the soundtrack. Wikipedia is going to go, what is this guy's deal with 16 Candles? And I was even listening to the soundtrack today, or portions of it, but there is a great song called, and this goes back to what what I'm talking about with her character and for fuck's sakes, pardon my poor language, but God damn it, where is it? It was there.
But that was the one.
What did they take it out for crying out loud? Because I even heard it. I've heard it on the. Okay, anyway, continue, Jim.
Yeah,
give me a minute while I look for this.
From the song title, I was sort of wondering because it's a very, the message of that is sort of unmistakable.
Oh yeah.
Today I met the boy I'm going to marry. So either that's an aspirational song, or it's a little bit of foreshadowing or whatever, or maybe it's just the song they like. So I'm not entirely sure, but
I think it had the song it's actually called Wait. Okay. And it plays diegetically at the dance.
Okay.
And so I think he was maybe a little it wasn't just obvious overstuffed. There's some of those cues that we're supposed to buy. So maybe it was, but I wouldn't have, otherwise it's she wants this beautiful boy as part of her Sweet 16. You know, it's about the candles.
Yeah.
It's about, I like the way you're talking about it. That it's a birthday and you're waiting. It's supposed to come to you, and these gifts finally do.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. In part because, like, even marriage is mentioned, but even then, and again, Caroline, the long term for the right man. The Caroline character, just I fantasize about us being married, et cetera, et cetera.
And us being the most popular couple
rich,
and the richest.
Popular, and
he comes for money, right?
So
that's...
yeah. But I don't. I think it's she's not even. She's like, I think she's literally playing it straight. I fantasize about this, not we're going to get married. Like, she's not thinking about, she does not have that kind of agenda. Like, her character doesn't seem to have that agenda, which is why she can be so adult. Well, like, again, a 24-year-old woman, well, young woman, but still a woman, drinking all 50 states. I don't think they do. I don't think that's its intent. It's her first boyfriend. Yeah. Yes, he has this desire to love, etc. Like, in some ways, he's less realistic about relationships than any of them. Yeah. And even, it's interesting, they kind of leave, like, as they break up, there's still it's like, well, whatever you want to do, you know, which is like, I think we know. Jeez, like, he was literally driving by, he was going to park his car and go talk to the new girl. And then he saw, I should deal with that. My dad's car. Actually, it doesn't seem to be worried about that. Boy, this kid is spoiled. Not much of a dick for being spoiled.
Yeah,
spoiled.
There's a lot of car damage to car, ownership of car. There's a lot of sort of subtext going on.
Well, and let me ask you about this: the cars. The Porsche, is it just me, or was that like the 80s cool car in that context? Like, the Rolls Royce is definitely a dad's car. When you saw it, like, I mean, it's even out of place. It was a little beat up, and I think that's part of it. That's the only one you're not getting a top tier $250,000 at that time car in your shitty little movie. You're getting a beat up, out of date, old kind of, we can rent that to you for $500 a day, $500. Or we got Bessie out here, you know, do you know what like, that vehicle again, well, it's all in the dark, you know, the shot, it's like, we're going to dirty that part up anyway. Yeah. Put a branch in front of it. Otherwise everyone will see the hole in the radiator or whatever. That makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, my thing, I guess, almost more so than brand, it's sort of like the color coding of the cars is that young guy's got the red car, right? And the dad's got an old brown car. If you look at what the Bakers are driving, Sam's family, it's a station wagon.
Sedans and station
not unlike
wagons.
one you'd find in the vacation movies. It's not metallic P, but and then the other one's just a sort of a plain old sedan. So it's kind of interesting.
Richard chimes in on the subject. I remember the Porsche as the 80s car, but did that predate this movie ideas? Or I'm assuming what you mean there, Richard, does it predate this movie idea, or is it because of it? And I'm going to say, I think, you know what, have to do a deeper dive, but I think it was just one of those brands that was really prominent in the late 70s, early, even mid 80s. Near the mid 80s and out of the 80s, Beamer. BMW was the yuppie car. But I think even at this point, it was still very much a pop culture idea. So I suspect they picked the car as a signal, it was not like Ray-Bans where cheap sunglasses until fluke of flukes. They picked them for, what was it? Help me out here. Ray-Bans. Dancing in underwear. Risky business. Thank you. Yeah. So I think it predates the movie. It's not because of the movie. Does that make sense to you, Richard? What about you, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to. I wasn't a big car guy.
I was a big status symbol guy.
Yeah,
that was a status symbol.
I got my driver's license late. I still took Power Mech just so I would, so I could talk about cars with my dad and stuff. And sort of failed miserably. Okay. But hated it, but yeah, I was not a big car guy. So I've hung out in car shops like that, but had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah. Well, I do though. Like I hear what you're saying, and yeah, obviously even the branding part for me, it wasn't like I couldn't say I was a car guy either. I took power mechanics, dropped it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like it's just, that was not it's like, what the hell am I doing here? I don't know shit about this.
Yeah.
I think it was really more about its status. Like it was just, it was the style of the time. Mm-hmm. And then the Beamer took over. Oh, okay. Richard's buying my BS. And contributing to it. So thank you very much, Richard. What about, and this is another thing that occurred to me, and this is, that John Hughes, you got somebody's rich. Here, it's not part of the conflict. And part of it is she never made it to the party. She was just so depressed. It's like, I'm just going to crawl into the couch. This sucks. So actually, maybe this is better if we do another John Hughes thing. Maybe we'll. So never mind. I'm gonna pin that conversation in part because I don't think it's relevant to this particular movie.
Yeah.
But I do have another. Again, there was. Like, I'm kind of amazed. I don't even think it's stuffed. I'm amazed that so much can happen in a movie that's 93 minutes long, but I don't ever feel rushed through the plot.
Yeah.
Not once. And you have those moments like getting back to there's a moment late in the second act. We haven't quite moved into the third, but where her dad, like the family does pick up the play. Oh my God, we forgot our kid's birthday. Mm. And her and her dad have that really sweet moment, which again, going back to the let's say the small p politics of the piece, and I would say this is like almost the intended subtext. She has a great relationship with her dad. They have a moment. Even the dad, who's like, anyway, can you just lie to me and say I figured it out or whatever? Yeah. Like, I love that moment. Like, the father is aware that he's not going to be as in tune with his kids anymore. He's not turning into something weird. They do have a moment, and it does. They get to breathe, and then at the end, the perfect hook. I know you'll be wearing the pants in the family, and oh right, my panties.
yeah.
I gave him to the.
I sort of wondered where that was going. I was like, well, how does he know that? Where is this? Oh, okay, that's right. Yeah. Well, even too, and then that's that thing is the thing that they do in movies is that they were when she was leaving with Jake and skipping the dinner. The dad sees them. I thought, well, it's nothing if someone doesn't witness this, right? It's the tree falling in the forest. It's like, if nobody witnesses it, doesn't happen. And so, he sort of gives the blessing, long distance across the parking lot or whatever. And that was also kind of a
well, and I like
nice
that moment because it's one more time where she was almost forgotten by her family. Like she runs back to get the veil for her sister because I think it's her sister. Of course, her sister's just a hot mess. Yeah. And as she has done with that family since the beginning of the movie, she sucks up all the attention. She is the sun, the gravity, like, you know, in some ways, probably the best thing that'll happen for Samantha. Maybe not for her brother, definitely for the little girl, where it's like all of a sudden the sun is left and we can all kind of get our orbits, or, you know, you got this massive weight that's left the home and everyone can kind of, oh, this is who we are without her, sucking up all the air. But at that moment, as he's trying to get the family in, and there she is kind of going, have I been fucking abandoned again? I have a little... It's a sweet moment.
Yeah,
I do think the me, that was like, come on, just let it. That was one
precious
me moment too. Even though she delivers it, I'm buying it.
Oh yeah,
I'm buying her performance. I'm putting on the director as a. You didn't need that.
An affectation of some sort.
Yeah. Like it. It was unnecessary. She delivers it well, but it was unnecessary. It's there's a moment where it's like, okay, cut. Hey, and then they have their little chit chat, their little chit chat. Well, I don't know. I am surprised. I was really kind of nervous. I thought it was all going to be just. I still think I'm surprised at how much I've even pulled even more. I do think this is a great movie that should be watched, while at the same time, with a warning label. Before we kind of wrap it up, any final thoughts? Any moments that you're?
I think we covered a lot of the things. I think I'm just sort of looking at my notes there, but when the question is, does it still hold up? I think there's a couple of ways in which something can hold up. I think it can hold up as a quality movie. Can also hold up as a sort of a historical document or a moving historical document. Is that it captures a time, it captures a place, a feeling, an age in one's life, and so that's another way in which you can hold up. I think this one, it's fascinating to see all the sort of the 80s things and it's
80s things in the moment.
Yeah, like contemporaneously.
Yeah, that was something like I did expect. So I prep my thing. I kind of write down some of my expectations, and I really one of the things I wrote before I watched was I was expecting her character to have style. But when I was watching the movie, of course she has style, and her friends have some style, and you see some of the mid-80s teen look. What I was fascinated by was anything that's shot now that's set in the 80s, there's almost a bit of caricature. The colors are too bright. It's too many popped collars. They pick these stereotypes of the look. And watching a movie like this kind of reminds, it wasn't all just lime green and, it wasn't that offensive to the eyes. And she still has a great style. The other thing, back to the clothing in that, there's never, except for that one scene, there's never once a lascivious, it's not deep cut. She's never just in panties. In some ways, there's been a retrograde thing happening. She's, even when she's in her underwear, it's a camisole, it's it's you're not kind of going, it doesn't feel lascivious. And I really kind of otherwise the most lascivious stuff I think we ever saw in pop culture from the time was, again, Revenge of the Nerds, beat up on them, but it was more rock videos, especially heavy metal ones, especially as the decade accelerated, as competition in that realm accelerated, where it was it became more of a porn star aesthetic in rock videos, but not in music videos, but not, teen comedies were not that lascivious, which it's really kind of surprised me.
Although I was surprised, I didn't recall the brief nude scene. I suspect it was a body double because they don't. But
it was in the credits.
Caroline was in
a body.
Oh, is there? Okay,
in the credits, there's her nude body double. Yeah.
80s design though. I like the shot when they go to. So they're both on the phone and they cut to Randy's bedroom and it's all lines and chrome and like she had actually a different 80s style bedroom than Molly Ringwald. I also have to say. And this may sound stupid, but one of the reasons why this movie does hold up is the hairstyles are pretty sedate. Like there's a lot of,
again,
long on top, short on the sides. No, not overdone. No real mullets, even on the sort of the slapsticky characters.
Yeah.
There's, if you watch old hockey games from '84, it's pretty hideous, but they sort of, it's almost, I won't say classic look, but it's as 80s as you can get and look like it could have been today. Like her haircut is very. It's not cringy anyway.
Yeah, it's not. They're not clowns.
It's like 80s music that doesn't have a lot of synthesizers tends not to sound so much like 80s music all the time.
Again, like more that middle part, feathered. Kind
of a little bit
like late 70s, early 80s, but no, like a little more. I mean, some of those kids lining the wall, I'm like, 83, I had that haircut.
Yeah,
but not clownish,
not hideous. Yeah.
Like, and you think about The Wedding Singer, where already it was like, okay, Madonna wannabe, it's already they're kind of making fun of the look. In what I don't think is a satire of the 80s. Like it wasn't meant to be like that was a romantic comedy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What then, like coming back to the, does it hold up? And this is something talking about with Richard and Katie and it's too bad Shashank and Jelly Duck, my fault that they're not here, but I'm wondering, it's almost like we have to, create, how do I put this? Kind of think about what do we mean when does it hold up? There's like, I think this movie is a movie and as I'm going to say a historical document. I like the way you put that, Jim, as a like, hey, this is what was going on in teen comedy in the 80s. Good, high quality teen comedy and the style and these things. Like you can't capture everything, but it certainly was a legitimate representation of a part of 80s pop culture.
Yeah. I think is it enjoyable? Like, does it feel stale? I don't think we found one that we haven't liked, and maybe that's sort of that.
I think this wears better than Bob and Doug.
Yes, yeah.
Like it isn't as dated because the humor comes from a different area. Let's say. Yeah.
Is it still watchable? I think is the main thing.
Well, no, I think I'm even saying that's one criteria. Mm-hmm. The other criteria is that yes, you can still watch this, but be aware there are things you're going to see that just would never be done, and nor should they be. Like it's even offensive then, the long duck dong. Like I mean, it's just I don't remember it. I was a 17-year-old. My head firmly up my ass, but I'm sure there's even people then going, "That's terrible." And then a lot of people going, "Oh, you just don't like fun."
Yeah. Well, it's sort of Mickey Rooney at breakfast at Tiffany's, right? It's it's kind of low hanging fruit as well from a piece that he's obviously put a lot of work and heart into, So.
And he gets like it is. It's probably the most National Lampoon-y, and the next movies do not have the shit in it. I mean, and I'm even going to give Weird Science. I think it's actually better than this one is, even though they literally make a girl to have sex with. Yes. It's hot in here.
Yeah, exactly.
But
It'll
I think
play.
when we think about it, it's almost like we can judge it on 3 levels of does it hold up. Is it still a good movie? Yes. I even say I'd go further on the history is like I think it actually is him and Amy Heckerling. You want to know how a good teen comedy can be made, you should be going there. I'm sure Apatow and Seth Rogen and his writing partner, his name I can't remember, when they were making Superbad, they were going, no, we want to do this. This is our guiding light, not any kinds of other junk that came out in the 90s and even the early aughts. So I think it still has an important place to look at in a film history sense. You're absolutely right. A great document of, hey, this is part of what the 80s kind of looked like. And it's still good. But yeah, because it's so good, you almost have to hold it to a higher standard on the small p politic, the gender roles and the racism for laughs, or the ethnic humor, the terrible ethnic humor. And so I think that's about the only where it's like, yeah, you need to qualify when you recommend watching it. It'd be just the same as, I can be a little quicker. I do recommend now Stagecoach. It is, and I see why people refer to it as a great film. I see where it fits in film history continuum, where like you really are just before Citizen Kane and Casablanca. You really do see it's like, no, John Ford was already, the film was changing. There's still a couple of silent film moments, but you really kind of see he's really kind of going, no, this is what film can be now that we have sound. And even though it'd been doing it for a decade, this is different. It even has moments that are really class aware. Like it's got a bit of class consciousness. Like watch it, Jim. I strongly recommend it. You can find it on,
I think Hoopla has it.
Yes, I believe so. Although I think I watched it on one of those ones, like Tubi or something.
Okay.
Anyway,
Tubi. Popcorn flicks, or some BS. I could a service I could pull up on my Roku television. Yeah.
This one, maybe not in the same light as John Ford, although I may be. But Stagecoach, I could easily recommend and say, but by the way, racist AF. It was 1939. It's the way it portrays, indigenous. The indigenous is awful, although not as bad actually as this poor Mexican character, because there's never an indigenous character in that movie.
Yeah,
it's all the impending threat of the Apache who are on the warpath. Literally.
I wonder why.
So exactly. Well, they even it's even noted for its time. It actually had a little bit more, let's say, acknowledgement of they might have a reason. Anyway, back to bring the cavalry in. That still doesn't. Well, it's kind of like what's going on now. It's like, no, fighting back is bad. Burning everything. No. All that shit we were doing to a point where you're finally burning everything around you. You got to stop that. We're not quite finished beating you. I don't know. Anyway, that's getting a little too out of scope. But I do. You got to qualify that. You got to qualify this. You got to say, hey, you know what? 35 years in how gender roles are portrayed is a long time.
Yeah.
And you're going to see stuff. And it's harder for us to watch this. Whereas Stagecoach, this is 1939. It's black and white. It's old-timey. So it's easier to watch. Here, it can be surprising to someone because it is in color. It is in high def, and it's harder to see the anachronisms. They got to be driving. Like you say, back to the hairstyles, some of the style isn't that shocking. So the phone that she physically has in her room, that's an anachronism, but there isn't as many anachronisms to allow somebody to enjoy it without the gender politics coming in, especially over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Does that make you buy into any of that?
Yeah.
What about you? What about you, Katie? Like, I'd love to hear as much as it can be in a chat. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you and Richard think about. Yeah, does it hold up to you? You guys watched it. What's the verdict? What what do you guys think? Like, not just as a quality of a movie, but it's those problematic, how did you put it, Richard? Issues? There's issues. Anyway, any other last thoughts before we should give Richard and Katie a chance to chat in, but before we announce the next week's movie, if you're forced to pick a favorite performance of this, which is going to be difficult because I can think of several that could easily be said, wow, that was great. But now, what do you think you're going to take away from it? What are you going to remember a year from now when, hey, 16 Candles? Yeah. Other than my left-wing BS.
Probably the star-making I think it was a star-making turn for both Anthony Michael Hall and Molly Ringwald, and I was really impressed by her screen presence, and as we discussed before, and I'd say both of them. She's the straight man, right? In this, yes. Essentially, so it's harder to sort of be all that and be the straight man at the same time, and still, but did a great job. Camera loved her, and they chose her well.
Yeah. Well, and it's like you say, it's only now where I go, wow, you're not on, like, I remember her. I remember her from this movie. It's only watching it this time where I go, she's not in it as much as my memory says she was, which goes to her. And you're absolutely right. She is a straight person, but it also goes back to that great filmmaking where they kind of go, we only need her in this part, no longer, like just enough to deliver what we need the audience to deliver. And then only so much of this, and then only so much of that, like never too much. Yeah. Okay. Richard's chiming in. Richard, enjoyable and entertaining movie from the start, but yes, all of the big issues we mentioned. And also to that same question, amazing cast throughout. Definitely Ringwald is the best, but so many great smaller parts. The dad, the little brother. Yeah, it really is a solid. This is like, Jim, we almost have to kind of give this Star Wars level, it holds up.
I don't know if I'd go that far. But
you just don't love it like I do.
No, but it's still a good watch.
Yeah.
I as an experiment, maybe not because I just watched it, but I'd sort of be interested to watch it with my friends my kids rather, as I said, we all watched the Breakfast Club together several years ago, and the opening scene where John Hughes is trying to blow your minds, and he shatters the glass on the screen. My kids both collapsed into so much laughter that we had to pause the movie because they couldn't. It was kind of a hokey moment, but anyway,
it might have wrecked them for it. Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting. You know, what'd be interesting to hear, Jim, is if they watched it without you.
Oh yeah.
Like and then get their thoughts after it. Like, there's always that, when you're watching something with people, especially something you've recommended, then all of a sudden you're almost like, are you liking it? Are you liking it? Did you notice that? Did you notice that?
Oh, fallen victim to that myself. So
yeah, well, we know our people.
Yeah.
As Richard and Katie, I've done that to them. Okay. Why don't I think we've, I'm such a fan of John Hughes, that shy, introverted marrier of cheerleaders, which is so nuts.
That's what I think. Hughes from Old English, I think that's what it translates into.
Although
we've broken the running time of the movie, so.
Okay. Well, then I think that really is our cue, and I think we've done more than broken it. I think we kicked it. ASS. Okay, Jim. Well, okay. Before we get to what we're watching next, please, can't help myself. Don't forget to like.
Oh yes, I totally forgot.
Subscribe. Although I think all the folks watching have subscribed, but
Yep.
I'm still putting it up there. And ring the bell.
Yep.
And yeah, Jim, before I put up the title card, do you want to tell us what are we watching next week?
We are watching, and I just double checked because I sort of I was blanking out earlier, but we are seeing the.
It's good I did that spreadsheet, right?
yeah, that Rob. The based on true Canadian events, Run This Town, set in Rob Ford's Toronto. So. There you go.
Yeah, it's you know what it's got some good reviews. It is set in Canada, and unless you're a fan of late night television, Rob Ford really became a character on I think Jay Leno. But like that era, like late in Jay Leno.
The mayor of Toronto for our foreign friends.
Yeah, the mayor of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. It's very much a Canadian story. You know what I might do even is when I put up the notice for this one, maybe I'll throw in a couple of links. And maybe even in this video, a couple of links to just sort of a catch. Like, I mean, there's got the Wikipedia article, at least on Rob Ford. And he was quite in a way, he was Trump before Trump.
Yeah.
Like he really was a mayoral Trump. Like outlandish lies, even when caught red-handed.
Yeah.
It's don't vote for me, vote for the policies. You mean all the things you said you were doing and you didn't do? Like, it's and popular, especially in that anti-urbanist suburbs, like a lot of the things a lot of the wave he rode was kind of a, not maybe demagogic, but definitely populist, center-right reaction to urban, not urban like in an American context, but urbanist. The city is the place to be.
Jane Jacobs and all that. Sort of thing.
That Richard Canada guy. So anyway, maybe I'll try and put up a little research, Jim, if you can help me with that. Just so people who aren't Canadian can kind of get a better idea of where this movie sits. Rob Ford, kind of a Canadian Trump. You know what, Richard, if you're still online, feel free to correct me if you think my take is wrong there. Hey, maybe we could get Richard and Katie to help us out with that research part too. Because I have no problem shamelessly exploiting our audience. A couple other shout outs. We've actually received a few recommendations, including 3 from our good friend Shashank, who some movie ideas. 3 Idiots is one, Like Stars on Earth is another. My Name is Khan. These are Indian films that, one of these ones we are definitely going to take a look at. There was another movie, and I can't remember it. One of somebody who kind of was introduced to us by, and I'll bring that suggestion up for next week. But anyway, these are some of the things we're looking at. But what our movie is next week, and we do have a bit of a slate well into we're now, Jim, this is like our 4.5 month of doing this. We're coming up on 6 months, and I think we have enough movie ideas we've committed to get us well into our 6th month, which is kind of nuts.
Yeah. And we're passing into another season.
Yes,
almost. It was pretty chilly today. So
back to school season.
Yeah, Well, fall
16th
equinox in about 3 weeks. So.
And 16 Candles was set up like 16 Candles is September. It's set in September.
Is it? I was wondering about that, yeah.
Because they're talking about, well, she's already lost her tan. Like right at the beginning, it's all, well, maybe next year's your year. But they're very much, they came out of summer. They're sometime in September, which I think is just perfect. We picked the right movie for the right time. And,
there you go.
All right. Well, on that note, folks, I would love to throw up an awesome outro, but I did not have time to customize the outro for this. So it's really just Jim, Jim, maybe give everyone a big wave.
See you, folks. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for chiming in.
Oh, and then, Richard, I'm glad I didn't cut it off until we got Richard's comment, which, I can only talk about it. Richard put up on the thing. Richard, looking forward to Die Hard in December. Not a bad suggestion, Richard.
Christmas movie.
Yeah, Christmas movie, and does it hold up? Maybe not like at the end of December, but end of November maybe. But that's a great suggestion, Richard. We'll definitely put it on our list, on our review list. Okay, Jim, you'll stick around. Yep. I'm now going to give my goodbyes to everyone. Thank you all so very, very much for coming and joining us and putting up with the delays. I swear to God, next week will be different. Please don't quote me on that. All right, everyone. Ciao for now.